What if boundary setting wasn't an act of rejection or punishment against somebody, but the actual ultimate act of self love, self preservation? What if you could choose connection without constantly losing pieces of yourself? Today, we're going to find out how. In today's episode, I'm really excited to introduce Trine Smith. She's a dual licensed psychotherapist, empowerment coach, and the founder of You Inside You. She had a painful divorce, and afterwards, she actually developed a unique soul plus science kind of approach to help high achieving women reconnect with their authentic selves. So, that is right up my alley because I love the soul and I love neuroscience. She's here to talk about her powerful frameworks like the boundary code and what it truly means to achieve relationship freedom. So, let's get started. All right, Trina, I'm so excited to have you here on Flip Your Mindset today.
Yeah.
So before we get started and I ask you questions, why don't you just share a little bit about your background, your certifications, your qualifications, and what it is that you do?
So I am a dual licensed therapist, mental health counseling and marriage and family. I'm also an alignment coach. I do energy healing, parts work, anything that can kind of create a faster way of healing,
Mhm.
integration, transformation is kind of what I dive into. So holistic approach to coaching and therapy.
A lot of people, I see a lot of people, we were talking about this off camera. I see a lot of therapists moving into this coaching space. So as someone who has done that, and I think it's a curious thing for the listeners why a therapist would do that. Why do you think therapists are moving into coaching and why did you move into coaching that way?
That's a great question. For me, when I stepped into therapy, I already had an inner knowing and calling that that was going to be a temporary thing for me. I knew that sitting in an office with one person in front of me was not going to be enough impact for me.
Mm.
I want to reach a lot of people. So when I reached the point of I've done the one-on-one, I've sat in the offices, moving into online during COVID,
Yeah.
realizing there's a lot more potential and a lot more people I can reach with the same tools, the same framework, the same things that I teach every individual in a much more vast way. And so I was really called to go into the coaching space where it's focused a little more about the here and now and where can I go? It's not so much focused in the heavy past. We have to go through trauma, we have to heal, and
Yeah.
I do healing as well. And it does require, going and looking at some past stuff, but it's not where we get stuck. It's not dissecting every single thing from the past, but it really is gaining the tools, gaining the confidence of understanding where we come from, and then really feeling confident in meeting the future with feeling good about ourselves.
And wouldn't you also say, and I always ask these questions because I love giving this kind of insight to my audience, right? Because we're in it, so we kind of take it for granted. But someone that's not in the mental health complex, that like they don't know the pits and takes and the ins and outs. So one of the things I loved about coaching, and I always thought I missed my calling as a therapist. And then in the end, I realized the universe took me on the exact path I was supposed to be on, and I'm right where I'm supposed to be. Is that in the realm of therapy, the goal of the therapist is to diagnose and treat and then be the expert in the room. Whereas coaching's job is not to diagnose and treat, it is to gain a deeper understanding of how someone's past, at least as a trauma coach, someone's past lived experiences are influencing them today, and then create that safe container for them to be able to process it so they can move forward. But it's more of a not peer to peer, but you're sitting more side by side versus being the authority sitting across. And it's also guided by the client, not guided by coach or do you see what I'm going with
Oh,
that? Does that make
absolutely.
sense?
Yes. I mean, there are so many cross things that happen between therapy and
Yeah.
coaching. But you're definitely right on in the fact that there is less of that authority. of, I can't really share as much of myself. What I really like in the coaching
When you're
space,
doing a therapy, you can't share as much.
yes, that's
Correct.
what I
Okay.
meant.
Yeah,
With coaching, I feel more free to be who I am. I feel more
totally.
free to relate to my clients as a human being. And we do that too in therapy, but it's a lot more guided by, ethical guidelines, and we can't share anything as much as we want to. I believe that my story, it's not about me, but when my story is
No
impactful
doubt.
to my clients, I think it is inevitably important for me to share that with them and be on the journey with them. It's almost like we're kind of exploring together, but yes, they're definitely more the expert. They're the ones that find the answers to themselves, and I love to see and be part of that journey.
It's so funny because I started traditional therapy in 1986 at around the age of 15, and then was in it pretty consistently, though I had breaks until I was 40. And yet I was still drowning in anxiety like every day. So something was amiss, right? Like that whole nervous system piece did not exist. So it was not, we can't understand. I always say we can't heal what we don't understand. And that was the missing piece of the puzzle for me. But when I turned 40 and I had a second nervous breakdown, legitimately my nervous system just breaking down, I said, okay, I have to do something different. And I went and saw, by trade, she's technically like a clinical hypnotherapist, but really she was a coach. But I never worked with anybody like that before. And I think what was so stunning to me I'll never forget this. This is 15 years ago. I'm sitting across from her and I'm telling her where I'm at in that moment and some of the really challenging things that are going on in my life within my family. And she starts telling me about something that happened to her in her childhood. And I literally can remember thinking my mouth was wide open and going, oh my God, is she allowed to do that? Because nobody, no therapist I had ever worked with had ever divulged anything personal. And so I was stunned and a little shocked, but felt so seen and heard and understood and felt
Mm.
so connected and felt like, oh, she's going to understand me
Mm.
because she gets it.
Mm.
Now, the therapist may have done that too, but if they're not sharing, what I have found is it left me feeling like I was faulty
Yeah.
and that they had their shit together, where the
Yes.
reality is they probably didn't. But
Yes.
when the coach was sharing with me, hey, I've been where you've been.
Yeah.
A, it was validating, but B, it was inspiring because I was like,
Absolutely.
oh, you've been through something really hard. And look
Mm.
at where you're at. Maybe I can get there too. So we leave feeling hopeful, which to
Mm.
me, hope is like the magic elixir in all of this. Like we need some hope that it can be different. We can feel better. Would you agree?
No, absolutely. I mean, there's 2 points that you're hitting here. It's again being connected with another human being, knowing that we're kind of going through life together. Just because I'm holding a space for you and I might have a framework that I know works and I can take you through those steps, doesn't mean I'm an expert in anything. Doesn't mean that I don't stumble. Doesn't mean I'm not trying to figure out stuff in my life in myself. And I'm definitely getting flashbacks, as you're saying there, to the few therapists that have given a little bit of themselves. And they were pivotal moments for me
Pivotal.
where I'm like, wow, you're right. If they can do it, I can do it. Or if they're experiencing that, I'm just not so wrong. And it's just so important to be met as a human being. And the other part of, I think, the limitations of therapy often is it's very focused on the mind and
Yeah.
very heavily focused on emotions, and two of those that I don't believe are part of really who we are. They're just wrapped up stories and part of the egos and parts that show up of ourselves that are not really real, but they are real experiences that we're having. So how do we learn to manage thoughts and emotions through an understanding of that left brain, which is important, but really embody it and bringing it into the creativity and listening to our intuition and having more of a soul approach, feeling it in our body, having it shift in our body, having it shifted on a cellular level, an
Right.
energetic level, and raise our vibration. I do not know many therapists that work on that level. And that quickly took that route in therapy. and shared more of myself and started speaking about energy and stuff, which my clients loved. And that's the approach that I'm really combining right now as a coach, because that space, we can't change and transform unless we connect both
Well,
brains.
I think that this is what's been missing.
Mm.
Over the years, I've worked with therapists myself as clients of mine who have come to me, had been in practice for decades, but feel stuck the way we all do feel stuck, right? Like they're not absent from that. But when I would work with them, every person said the same thing, which was the missing piece. I'll never forget introducing, not, I didn't even know I was introducing. I thought I was just showing the window of tolerance to one of them. And I said, I said, obviously you're familiar with the window of tolerance. And she went blank. And then I quickly was like, I had to backstep and said, oh, are you familiar with the window of tolerance? And she goes, I've never seen this before. And that was a mind blowing poof to me, because to me, it's so integral. And I think this is a little bit of what you're saying. Like the psychology is the study of the mind and the emotions. But when people are coming and sitting on my couch and they're saying, I am drowning in anxiety or I'm having a panic attack, I will often say, how do you know? And they look at me and I say, I'm not questioning you. I totally believe you. I just want you to be able to describe it to me like I've never heard the word before. So if I don't know what that word means, just describe to me what's happening for you, that you are using the word anxiety or you're using the word panic to describe. And they will describe something that's happening from their throat to their gut. That's the nervous system part. And for me, that was always my challenge. I always would say, I intellectually get it up here, but my body's not, there's a missing piece.
Yes.
My body's not catching up. So I think sometimes people struggle with traditional therapy because the therapists, many of them, at least out, if they haven't gone for extra training, just your general MSW or your licensed clinical social worker may have not really gotten a lot of training in things like polyvagal theory or the nervous system. They're really focusing on the mind. Is that true?
Yes, I mean, I see the trend changing. I
Yeah, I do
think that
too.
mindfulness and body somatic work is
Yeah.
really is spilling into therapy as well, which is so wonderful to see. But you're definitely right. A lot of times it's, let's work on coping skills and let's work on these techniques. And when you catch this, then you do ABC, and then this is connected to that. And so you have these tools that are, again, very left brain. And how am I going to be able to embody that, as you're talking about? How is that going to get into my body and signal by the body? And I think that's where that missing piece is.
I
My
have one
term,
more question for
yeah,
you before I
sure.
go into my questions I actually had
Yeah.
prepared for you, but we're jamming out here and I think my audience likes it when we just can jam out on these things.
Mm.
Wouldn't you say that um how do I put it? It's you were oh, I just had the best question. I should have written it down.
It'll
This
come
is the
back.
problem
It'll
when we're
come back.
jamming out. But I think what we were talking about was the idea of the nervous system not being something that's inherently trained,
Yes.
changing. And there was a question I had for you there, and I know it will come back to me. It's okay. We're not perfect beings. Even I make mistakes. But I think it's good for people to understand that part of that stuckness. Oh, I do know what I was going to say. One of the things that you were saying was that, we're teaching coping strategies, right? How do I mitigate this? How do I cope when this happens? How do I manage these symptoms? Versus, and I think this is where you and I are in alignment, figuring out what's the root of the symptom to begin with. And wouldn't you often say that the root of what's happening that we're trying to create coping strategies for are things that are rooted in, say, core beliefs or experiences that we've had that are still living, quote unquote, in our body still living in the blueprint from which we live life that maybe is no longer authentic with who we are.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So the past, the way it influences us, and I would say sometimes in therapy, we focus on, well, this is because your childhood was like this and your parents treated you like this, and kind of the lack of what happened to us.
Mm,
And so, we can change the narrative, we can manage it with coping skills, and we can transform some of these things. I like to go deeper, like you're saying, the root cause of it, because first of all, I believe everything happens for a reason. I believe that we have chosen the parents that we have
mhm.
come to earth with. And we're getting more spiritual here. Um, and I also believe that the things that we've gone through, the contrast we've experienced, is really used for information, not to really blame it or making a cause of it. It's just information to realize there's something more I want in life. And how do
Absolutely.
I manifest that? How do I cultivate that instead of keep pointing fingers and keep making being kind of a victim of circumstance? But how can I use that as information now and transform that into that next level of me, and a new you inside you, those nuances of learning more deeply about who we are.
All right. So that's a perfect lead in. So your work obviously is deeply personal. My work is deeply personal. I think most people who are in the space come to it from their experience, right? So
Mm.
can you share how your lived experience with, say, divorce became a catalyst for creating you inside you?
Yeah, absolutely. I came to the US in my 20s, and I didn't really know a thing. I was, full of dreams and curiosity and hope coming here. But life had other plans.
Mm,
I was found myself living with an abusive family. I felt powerless and afraid. And when someone came to rescue me, I
mm,
thought it was love. And that really became a 12-year dysfunctional marriage, marked by control and emotional pain and what I call self-abandonment. Like
yeah.
I left myself to be able to function in that marriage, and I try to fix him. I try to fix the marriage because I had all this knowledge, I was going to school, I was becoming a therapist, like I can fix this, right? And I try to fix myself. And as a result, I became the peacemaker, pleaser, the one who carried everybody's emotions. Um, I made myself feel small, like my light got dimmed because feeling stuck and lonely and frustrated and lashing out at everybody, I blame my circumstance and eventually like blame myself. Like, why can't I figure this out? If only I can do better and love better and maybe stay more quiet and love harder, things would change. And I found myself just lost. I was really just like an empty shell of myself. And my inner knowing and desire for more, I thought was unattainable. I really believed that there was limits to what you could reach in life, that other people's happiness is something that was unattainable for me. Like I really believed I didn't have the permission, which was just
Mm,
mind blowing looking back at it
mhm.
now. But that's what I thought. So the breaking point was really, there has to be more to life. Like my
Yeah.
soul was just screaming, there has to be more. So it really got me into this deep dive into self love, understanding energy. I started meditating. I really got the concept of, I have to make myself happy first. And what does that even look like? What kind of people do I want in my life? And very quickly, my life started changing. I felt more empowered. I felt more in charge. Was able to set
And
boundaries
were you
more.
still in the marriage at that
I
time?
am still in a marriage at that time. And it got to a new version of myself where I realized I can no longer be in this marriage.
Mm,
If I'm going to be true to myself, I had to leave, which is a really, really, really amazing decision that I did for myself under the circumstances I was in, because we were not aligned at all. We were
yeah.
not aligned.
Yeah.
I wanted to be a better mother, and I knew I had to be out of the relationship. to be a better mother.
I just, the way that you were describing, it's so important. You were so eloquent with the way you've described this. And I've heard almost verbatim this exact story in my own client sessions. The language of being a shell of yourself, the language of self abandoning, the language of becoming the people pleaser, the no boundary setter, the extreme caretaker, the person that's holding the burden for everybody else's emotions, trying to twist yourself and contort yourself into something that is so far from you, you don't even know who you are anymore in order to fix it, when the reality is that there's actually nothing you can do for the other person. There's nothing you can do to make this person treat you better, treat you with respect, do the things that we would want in a partner. That's their own backpack of stuff that they're carrying. And we have to then do the exact opposite of self abandonment, which I feel is boundaries, which we'll talk about,
Mm.
which is we start to prioritize ourself, self with the capital S. We start to prioritize our nervous system. We start to prioritize the things that make us happy. And what I've heard, and I'd be curious to what your take is on it, if I sit down and say to my clients, well, what would make you happy? If they're in this state, they will say, I don't even know who I am. I can't tell you what I even like because I've abandoned everything to the extent of I couldn't tell you what food I like. I can't tell you what color I like. I can't tell you anything because it hasn't been a priority in survival.
I
How does
find
that
that,
resonate?
yes, I find that with all my clients too.
Yeah.
When we get to a point after understanding everything and validating everything, because those feelings are real,
Yeah.
and I just want to catch people in that space because it is that reality. It is the survival mode, and they're not alone. Like, I know exactly what that feels like. Instead, what were you asking me again?
I don't even know if I asked you a question. I think I just
Oh,
asked you if it resonated
oh yeah,
because
yeah. So
it go.
identifying what you want. So when I ask them, what would you like instead? It's blank. Or they would give me one thing and then inevitably go into, yeah, but I really don't like this and I really don't want this. It's very hard for them to stay in what I like, what do I want, what do I desire? And it really springs out of I've never allowed myself to ask myself that.
Yeah.
And then there's the permission part that I didn't think I had the permission to. I didn't even think that it was possible to even dream about a life I truly desired. Because why would I do that when I know it's not possible?
So interesting. I wrote down the word aloud. And I
Yeah.
think that this is what, and I do, I'm not trying to subset or segregate, but I do see this as being a real female challenge
Yes.
in the sense that we've kind of been inherently, all you say, unspoken rules, unwritten contracts,
Yes.
been taught to not take up space. And so we find ourselves not feeling like we have permission to, or not feeling that we have the allowance to dream, be bigger, be bolder. Would you agree?
No, absolutely. The
I
self, yeah, go ahead.
well, I'm just curious because I'm
Mhm.
trying to think of the person that's listening to this on the other side.
Yeah.
Who there's got to be someone that's going, "Oh my god, this is my story." There's two questions I have. One is backwards and one is forward thinking. So the
Mhm.
backwards piece is there a through line from between 0 and 18 and the way that you were raised or the environment that you were raised in that kind of reinforced those thought processes, number one, and number two, how did you harness the courage to break those belief systems?
Mm. What a great question. I want to go back to a question that I asked my grandmother about 5, 8 years ago. I was kind of interviewing her about her life
Mm.
and asked her because she deeply wanted to be a hairdresser. And it was just, as she said, not in the cards. Like she couldn't do that for whatever reason. And I was like, Grandma, why didn't you? You really wanted to become a hairdresser. And why didn't you? It was just the way it was. And she would answer most of my question with like I've never been asked this question before. I've ever even thought it could be different, and that's just the way it was.
Mm.
So when we're raised in families, and my parents were raised under those circumstances, that's just what you did, and this is how you do it, and this is what you ought to and expect it. And also very much Danish culture that I am brought up in, although we're very innovative and international and very ahead on innovation and inclusion and equality in Denmark. There's also this kind of very square box of, you stay close to your family and you don't move out, and you don't really move to another country. And a lot of things you just ought to do. You ought to go to college and you ought to do this. At least that's how I felt growing up. So it's hard to kind of break out of that. So the 0 from 18 is really established by how much self love do my parents have for themselves? What kind of relationship do they have with themselves and each other? How are boundaries set
Based on how they were parented.
based on how they were parented, right?
Yeah, listen,
Absolutely.
intergenerational trauma to me is one of the
Yeah.
most right, it holds the
Mm,
highest space for me right next to nervous system work.
yeah.
And I don't think we can do this kind of work without bringing both of these things
No,
into the mix. And I
absolutely.
don't know if you do genogramming with your clients, but I do a lot of genogramming with my clients. Just even if we can go back 3 generations, just to start
Mm,
to see some patterns
mm,
of relationships and environments and these unwritten rules and these unspoken
yeah.
contracts.
Yeah.
And, they say we carry 7 generations
Mm, mm.
within us.
Absolutely. Yeah. Genograms are amazing and
I love it.
eye-opening, right? Understanding where all this come from. Energetically, I go into some of the generational stuff where it really is the unspoken contracts that we carry from the subconscious. I access more on the intuitive and energetic level, and this is where I transform things on a deeper level. It can even go even further into the ancestral line
Yeah,
of
so what does
this.
that look like?
It looks like deep meditation.
Okay.
So the space that I'm in with my client is that I get them in a state of a theta state, the deepest form
Mm,
of meditation, and this is where the transformation happens. This is where we're most open, and this is where limiting beliefs and feelings can kind of get downloaded, new feelings that our nervous system has not recognized or don't know yet, to really start living subconsciously from a different level. It's almost like positive affirmations and programming that, EMDR. I know you do, you have kind of a technique that you
I
use that
do
kind of,
rapid the way you're describing it, it's rapid transformational
yes,
therapy is my model. Same thing, we get into that theta brainwave state. We
yes,
start to look at the experiences that
yes,
created one core belief, and in that moment,
absolutely.
we reframe it, we
Yes,
repair it and do inner child work in that moment
yes.
to then reframe
Mm,
a new core belief.
yeah.
And then at the end, what I think is unique about RTT is that after they've been on this journey for an hour and a half or so, at least the way I do it, then they get to chill and I speak into existence for the first time. What you might call a guided meditation, we call it a guided hypnosis. It's a
Hmm.
manifestation. It's all the same thing.
Oh,
But
yes.
I've
Yeah.
created something unique for them
Mm,
prior to the session based on our sessions leading up, knowing what I know they want
hmm.
plus what comes out in the session itself. And I
Yes.
speak it into existence and I
Mm,
record it and they zone. And then when they come out of that whole session and the session's over, I mix it with some binaural frequency music to open up that brainwave again, re-induce them in the recording, and then have them listen to it every single day for at least 21 days, so that reprogramming and that neuroplasticity can happen, and we're rewiring our brain for a new set of suggestions, a new set of core beliefs. Maybe the old belief is I'm not enough,
Mhm.
and now the new belief is I'm much more than enough. It's inherent in me when I'm connected to self, when I'm living authentically aligned, whatever the word is. And it's kind of like you're force feeding yourself for a bit,
Yes.
listening to these recordings on the daily basis. But at some point, they're telling me I hear the recording without even hearing it anymore,
Mm.
or I hear your voice. When I
Yes.
start to get to that zone, I hear your voice, and
Mm.
I can rewire it. I can read, it's like it's like scratching. I always like scratching a groove on a record player. Like you've been in this loop, and
Yeah.
now we're just rewinding and creating a new loop for them to work through that's more in alignment with what they want. So
Yeah.
I want you to talk a little bit more about the vibrational piece, because
Mhm.
I always say to my clients, listen, I don't I'm not trained in the energy space. I'm not trained
Mhm.
in vibrational energy, but I can tell when they're at a lower energy,
Yeah.
and then they're going
Yeah.
to attract more of this lower energy. And we talk about raising the vibration to meet
Right.
what they actually want. You can think you want one thing, but energetically you're still attracting down here.
Yeah.
So can you speak a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. We're energetic beings. We all say, wow, she has a great vibe, or I don't like their energy, right? Like
Yeah.
we inherently feel it, but it's so intangible that it's really hard to understand. So all thoughts and emotions have a vibration. And so the lower vibrations are the, depression and despair and fear, right? And then you have the higher vibration, which is hope and joy and gratitude. When we move up that vibrational scale, we will get more of what we want. So when we focus on what we do not want,
Yeah.
we will get more of that, which is why our work is split into two, right? There's the identifying, understanding where we're coming from, and then integrating that into what do I really want? Like what end
Mm,
of this stick do I really want to pick up? That doesn't happen overnight. It's a process, right? It's a transition. So if we want to feel more hopeful, we're going to have to practice that. We're going to have to look for thoughts and higher feeling feelings and higher feeling thoughts that create more of a habit to start attracting more hope. If we think about hope and hopelessness comes in at the same time, well, guess what? We got conflicting vibrations, and we're probably down in hopelessness again. We can't hold the vibration of hope. So, climbing up the vibrational scale can happen in many ways, working with you, working with me, releasing some of the old beliefs that we have through a regular meditation practice or mindfulness practice that really gets us aligned with who we are and those desires. And then some kind of practice, as you're talking about, marinating in what I want,
yeah.
listening to the podcast, having stuff in your ears, reading stuff, being in communities. I offer in a community where people continuously celebrate their growth and can show up as who they are and accepted for what they are. So you can continue the growth and you can stay in that alignment. When we grow into that new version of ourselves, it's hard to go back to old
You can't
environments
look back.
because we feel we don't belong anywhere,
I
right?
just had
Sometimes
a
we're in.
client say to me the other day, I cannot unsee what I have seen.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
can't, I cannot go back when I've
Yeah.
seen everything now through this new
Yeah.
lens. And the thing is, people need to understand it's all very good stuff, but tying right back to
Yeah.
what we were talking about earlier with the divorce,
Yeah.
when you can't unsee it,
Yeah.
everything starts to shift. And so people will say to me, I'm seeing my relationships shift. I'm seeing my friendships shift. I'm seeing my tolerance for showing up in the way I used to show up. I can't stomach that anymore. I can't be the people pleaser. I can't be the no boundary setter. I can't be the good girl to make everybody else happy. I
Mm.
have to be me. And not everyone's liking it. but I'm
Mm.
loving me. So
Mm.
do you feel like this was the tipping point for you to get from that extreme people pleaser
Absolutely.
to I am no longer open for this kind of relationship anymore? And in order for me to live in my true authentic self, I need to remove myself from this relationship.
Absolutely. Our growth and our inner awareness and how we start showing up differently for ourselves, we will inevitably affect our relationships. It doesn't mean that relationship will break up, because often, and I've seen it many times with my clients, their relationships actually transform.
Mhm.
They blossom, they grow with each other. And so that's very, very possible. Same with friends. I say transformations change generations. So we have impact on everybody around us, our children, even our parents, the older
Yeah.
generation. It shifts everything. So it's important to allow yourself to be who you are, and knowing that the changes that happen for a reason.
Mm.
It cleans out the energy that no longer serves us. And sometimes it is in form of a relationship. This
Yeah.
is what I call relationship freedom, showing up as who you truly are and having deep committed relationship without losing yourself. So when you
So
connect deeply
important.
and having a healthy relationship, you can be who you are. That is what relationship freedom is. It's not that you don't have to be in a relationship. It doesn't have to be that you have to cut off your relationships. But how do I show up as who I am and not losing connection with others?
And not abandon yourself. You have to stay
Yeah.
connected to yourself. Tell us about the integration code, Trina.
Yes. I love this part. This is really what came out of my own transformation, and the work that I've done with the women in the space of how do I upgrade myself? How do I not continue to be that old version of myself? And
Mm.
how do I really embody that? Because I find a lot of people get stuck in the middle of, well, other people don't see me differently, or they're still treating me the same way, or I'm trying to embody these boundaries and it's not really working. And as a, I just feel bad about myself. I don't really feel like I fit in a new space, but I don't really fit in my old life either.
Yeah.
What's missing here is what you're talking about from here down, is that integration into your body of really accepting. There's an acceptance level and a step that I have in my integration code that I found have been the shift, because we can have the knowledge, we can have the awareness, which is great. You know, like you're halfway there. We can do some of the healing, we can do some of the understanding, we can kind of build the skills, helps us get to the next level. But how do I accept it? How do I embody it? How do I show up with that vibrational difference in what I did before? That can be the hardest part, and that's what
No doubt.
people a lot of times need work with.
I call that the gap between radical
Mm.
awareness and radical acceptance.
Mm.
It's a chasm. It's like leaping the Grand Canyon. But
Yes.
you can have this great deep awareness. To me, this is the awareness
Mhm.
and this is the acceptance. This is
Yes,
when everything aligns up, right?
yes,
So, what does it mean for somebody to engage with the integration code? Are they doing one to one coaching with you?
yes.
Is it a
Yeah,
program? What
yeah.
is it? How does it work?
Yeah, right now, it's a program that I offer for women to work one on one with me and have access to my community. So, the
Okay.
importance with when we're upgrading, a lot of times we feel very lonely in that, because
Yeah, no
people
doubt.
around us feel like we're growing horns out of our head. What are we talking about? This doesn't make sense. I don't recognize you anymore.
Mhm.
There's so much protesting a lot of times from the people outside of us, and our perceived notion of how other people see us is. So I work one on one because it's a customized process for where people are at in their awareness and what needs to be worked on, and we work through the integration code, which can be used again and again for sustainable change and transformation in other areas. and then gaining them into that community of other women who are going through the same stuff, who experience the same things, who speak the same language and can hold that uplifting energy that a lot of times they're looking for. People are looking for somebody to be met in that space of, you're exactly where you're supposed to be. Wow, I totally am going through that right now. I feel lonely too. I feel confused too. It doesn't make sense to me, but now it makes sense because I'm with people that get it.
Yeah.
So that's what I
It's
do with.
interesting. I'm thinking about, when I have a lot of books behind me here, and
Mm,
books have become a big part of my healing journey because when I really needed the most help, I had the least amount of money. So, this is why I do my podcast. This is why I offer book clubs because we need a lot of good, low, and no cost entry into the mental health space that's valuable. And the very first book I opened up that really started the whole journey for me was in the fall of 2012. So probably around this time, maybe a month from now, because I can remember what was going on in 2012. So that was 13 years ago. I opened up the book Daring Greatly by Brene Brown. And I had been in and out of therapy. So that was 2012 since 1985, 86. Nothing, I never felt more understood than I did when I read that book. And it was shocking to me because everything I was struggling with, she talked about
mm,
in that book.
mm.
And I thought, how is she writing about that? And it was a big aha moment of like, wow, this is very universal. This is not isolated and unique to me.
Mm,
Because that's what we feel when we're going
mm,
through it, right? Like nobody can
mm.
understand. Not only did she understand, she just described me and we've never met.
Yes.
It was just absolutely shocking to me.
Yeah.
What I loved about that whole experience for me is you kind of do feel isolated, like you said. You don't have anybody else around you. At least I didn't at that time. There was these ideas of memberships and groups online. It didn't really exist 13 years ago. So I felt very alone
Mm,
in my understandings, and I didn't have anybody I could really talk about it with.
yes.
Then she came out with this book called Rising Strong. It
Mm,
was the book that came out right after Daring Greatly. And it
mm,
was brilliant because in Daring Greatly, you're learning how to be you, figure out who you are, become more in alignment. She calls it wholehearted, right?
mm,
We call it alignment, flow, self. It's all
mm.
the same thing, different word. But then she talks about in Rising Strong the reckoning and the rumble that happens when you are aligned with you
Yeah.
and how people around you are like, whoa, 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 whoa. We like the old Stacy better.
Yeah.
We like the old Trina better.
Yeah.
We're not really interested in this version of you.
Yeah.
And that's hard because we are hardwired for connection.
Mm,
We want to be accepted. We want to be approved of. We want that because it feels safe, because then we'll be a part of the collective. But yet, if I do what you want me to do, if I show up the way you are more comfortable, I'm abandoning self again. And that's a very natural process that
yeah.
someone has to go to. I've learned to harness this self energy, become more self led, be in flow, be in alignment, whatever we want to call it. But now I've got people that are trying to drag me back down to where I used to be because it makes them more comfortable. And it's how do you stay strong? How do you rise strong
Mm,
and still be this version of yourself that's actually probably your original innate self?
mm. It's so uncomfortable, right?
So uncomfortable,
It's
but
so.
mostly uncomfortable for the people around us that are like, but that's not who I married, or that's not, I even see it with clients. It's interesting. I had a client recently say to me who is working very hard and coming into themselves.
Yeah.
And a parent said to them, I don't even recognize you.
Yeah.
I don't even know who you are.
Mm,
And my client said, it's because you never got a chance to really see me
mm,
because I was always being the version that you wanted. I
mm,
never got to be me.
mm.
That's a long journey. And that
Yeah.
can be a very isolating journey because when everyone around you is pointing your fingers and saying, this is bad and this is wrong and this is flawed, and you're use all the D words, deficient, disordered, deranged, whatever, go back. And they're
Mm,
saying, no, going back is not me.
mm.
Would you say that that's a big part of you inside you and the integration code that these people go through these experiences?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. When you are speaking about going back and having a conversation with somebody that doesn't understand our process, I think what's really important to emphasize is I used to be one that would explain myself
The
to other
over
people,
explainer.
and people would still not get it
Yeah.
because they most likely don't really get it. However, if you allow yourself to, I call it, go back into the elevator, when we're going up to different levels. In the elevator is where this solitude of listening to ourselves and kind of marinating in what feels good for us to be prepared for that next level. When we go back into old rooms, it's the inner authority that really has to shine through, and more of the energetic upgrade that needs to lead before our words. Often our words of transformation happens later because we often don't have the vocabulary yet to match the new version of ourselves. So during this integration process, be patient with
Mm.
yourself. Use Q-tip, quit taking it personally, which is one of my, relationship freedom techniques, because what is coming at you, or the judgment that you might be feeling, is not about you, it's about their discomfort. Hold space for yourself and know that this is a transition into a different level. The transformation of the relationship will happen, and your words will be much more aligned if you can just give yourself a little more time, maybe listen more, and just be curious about where they're coming from without taking it personally.
The curiosity is absolutely the
Key.
power solution. It's the elixir to all things. And,
Yes.
you know, I'll often say to my clients, if they're frustrated with, say, a family member, say it's this kind of circumstance, and I'll say, what is it that you want to say? Well, I just don't understand. Why don't you get it? And I'm like, okay, now what if you ask that same question with a different intention? And you said the same words. I don't
Mm,
understand. Why don't you get it? What is happening here that you don't understand this? Explain to me.
yeah.
What is it that you don't understand? Now we're going from frustration and resentment and judgment and anger and conflict
Mm,
to actually really being curious and wanting the answer.
yes.
It's the same words.
Yes.
And I say, if you were to ask that question with pure curiosity,
Mm,
what do you think it could be met with? And they say, eh. And I say, do you think that that's the truth? And
mm,
they say, yes, probably. And I'm
mm,
like, but is that okay? So sometimes the truth might be, I just don't understand it because it's never been presented to me that way, or this is not the way I was taught, or this is not the way I thought things were supposed to be.
yeah.
And so we have to accept that too, because when we really say, I don't understand why don't you get it? What we want is for the person to quickly just say, you're right, I'm wrong, your
Yeah.
way is right. And that's what we want. We don't really
Yeah.
want the answer to why
Yeah.
don't you get it? Because that's a
Absolutely.
process. That's a journey. That's that
Mm,
person's journey,
yeah.
and you're over here on your journey, and now that's going to take some time, and people don't like time. They want the silver bullet. They just want
Yeah.
things fixed. Healing is not that way. It's lengthy and it's complicated, and the person that you're so frustrated with, they have their own backpack of their own lived experiences and their own
Absolutely.
genogram and their own blah 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 blah, and nobody really wants to address that. Humans are complicated.
Right. And Stacey, there's also the aspect of going back into old spaces where we have a history, and we go maybe back into survival mode, it
Yes.
is just the most common and normal thing that we go into kind of old patterns and we're defending ourselves, and we might be attacking other people again because we feel misunderstood and we feel like we're in a corner and we feel alone in this. This is where we need to hold that patience and kindness for ourselves in the transition process to really equip ourselves with new language, not only internally feeling different, but how do we match it externally in the way that we communicate about ourselves, communicate about others, communicating with curiosity, not taking it personal. That space, what you call the ownership code, like what's mine and what's yours.
Yeah.
It there's a clear, tennis court here with a net in the middle, and I swing the ball over to your side, and you're not supposed to jump over the net to return that ball, which a lot of women do
Yeah, yeah,
because we
yeah,
know how to do
yeah.
it well, and we know that they don't want to, they don't do it right, or they may not want to do it at all. But if we stay on our side of the court, which takes a while to really distinguish clearly, has to do with boundaries, but also has to do with really understanding those emotions just not my responsibility. Whether they're angry about and upset about it, it's really not mine to hold. It's not my
It is
fault.
it
I
is
didn't
that
do
is a
it.
lifetime of learning, and to me, it's simple. When we're working with people, if we can get them to just start to see, what did I learn in survival? Survival can be determined by a lot of things. It doesn't have to mean that you were being beat and assaulted and that there was aggression. It could just be, I wanted to be seen, loved, heard, and understood by maybe either parents who were limited in nature, or maybe you had that at home, but you had friends that were limited in nature. Like, it didn't have to be this big bold thing, but we shape shift in survival of connection,
Mhm.
because connection feels safe. And all we're trying to do, I think, you as a coach, me as a coach, is trying to get our clients to just be able to see that.
Mm,
So then when they come in and sit down in a session, they say, "Oh my God, you'll be so proud of me." Because the old version of me would have taken that thing so personally. Like, my friend didn't respond to that text. And instead of being upset, I actually got to question,
yeah.
and say, "Oh, I wonder what's going on with them," versus what we see so often is, "What did I do wrong? What's
Mm,
wrong with me? They're upset with me." Just that little tiny micro
mm,
shift. Talk
mm,
about relationship freedom. It's the relationship to yourself. It's this freedom of, like, "Oh my God, I don't have to carry this burden
mm.
of this thought process that I am the problem all the time."
Yeah.
I get to be curious and say, "Oh, I guess maybe, I don't know, maybe their phone's off. Maybe they left it somewhere. Gosh, maybe they lost it. Maybe they're busy. Maybe they don't know how they'll respond to that, but it's actually not about me."
Yeah.
That is freedom and liberating, to the extreme extent.
It's the best feeling in the world
It
when
really
I
is.
truly learn to step into freedom, that I'm in charge. I get to choose, like Brene Brown, I get to choose how to show up, and even Mel Robbins, let them.
Yeah.
Like, let them and let me. Like, how do I choose to respond to this? Like, I'm always in charge of whether I want to stay in this conversation, I want to stay in this environment, need to calm myself down, what higher feeling I want to reach for at this moment. It is just so, so, so important
Yeah.
to recognize that we have the freedom. We have the freedom. And a lot of times I actually see clients not noticing these changes. I hold a lot of space both in my community of conscious connections, speaking out loud to them. Wait a minute. Can you tell me where you were a month ago, or the
That's
version of
right.
yourself a year ago? How would they have responded in this? And the light going on and their eyes opening up and be like, you're right. I
Oh,
never
yeah.
even thought about that.
Oh, yeah.
And
Oh, yeah.
celebrating that and giving them credit for that. I mean, it's like, who did that?
They did that.
I did that.
Yeah.
Yes, you chose different. You have a choice every moment.
And
You did
sometimes
it.
they're so deep in it, they can't see it as clearly as we can. I've done
No.
that many times. I'll go back and I'll be looking into my file and they'll say, we started working 14 months ago.
Yeah.
You know what we were talking about 14 months ago?
Yes.
And they'll go, oh my God. And I'll say, this is a
Yes.
very different conversation. And they're like, you're right, it is.
Yes.
And so then sometimes they lose track and they lose perspective and they don't
Yes.
see because it's almost like micro shift, micro shift, micro shift, so tiny. And then all of a sudden I'm like, look at this. And they're like, oh my
Yes.
God, you're right. And sometimes they need that reminder, that cheerleader, that external, it's not external validation, it's just a mirror of like, I want to show you actually what you've done here. And
Mm.
sometimes they need that. It just they're too close to it to be able to see it sometimes.
Absolutely. And what I hear over and over again in kind of the end of the program with my clients after they light up, they feel free,
Yeah.
their relationships are stronger, their direction is stronger, they've gotten the promotions, they're on stage speaking, whatever it is that just freed them. They're like, Trina, I had the answers inside the whole time.
All along.
I didn't even know. I know how to do it now. Like I know what life is about now. I know what to do because I have the tools.
I
I
feel like
have
you and I
something
are
next
just
to
like
me.
people that are like, listen, here's the map. We've walked this land before.
Yeah.
And all we're going to do is either step next to you or be right in front of you with the lantern. But you're going to actually figure this is your map and
Yes.
you're going to learn this map. I'm just here as a guide. And if you come to a tree trunk and you're like, I don't know how to get over that, I might show you how to get over that once or twice. But then the next 4 times you come up against you, you're going to know how to get over it. And
Right.
then when we get to the end of the forest, I'm going to hand you the light and you're going to
Yeah.
have it for when you enter the forest again. And
I
then if
know.
you get to a point, you can 911 me and be like, I'm stuck.
Absolutely.
And then we can work through it, but you're going to know how to do it. You have it in you. There's just,
Yes.
you've got these fears and these blocks that are telling you you can't do it. And I'm just going to show you how to overcome
Absolutely.
those, right?
Yeah, and I
So,
really want to point out, Stacey,
yeah.
we were not brought up with this roadmap. We were not learned
No.
how to step into emotional intelligence. For people that bong themselves for not knowing how to figure this out, like we were not taught this. Stacey were not taught this. I was not taught this.
No, but this
Schools
is
are not
why we
teaching
do
it.
what we do because
Yes.
I think when we figure out the roadmap and the
Yes.
blueprint, we go, oh my God, I don't want anybody else to suffer the way that I suffered. That's why I
No.
created the calm code. I was like, when I
Yeah.
when I understood
Yeah.
why anxiety was in my system for so long,
Mm.
it was the absolute made sense. This was a normal response to a number of abnormal circumstances.
Yeah.
And when I could approach it from these other pieces of knowledge,
Yeah.
now anxiety, if it's showing up, is showing up because it is rightfully supposed to be showing up. And if it shows up unannounced and uninvited, it's not nearly staying as long as it used to.
Yeah.
So when we learn these things and we have this ability to take these complex concepts and simplify them in a way that people can understand them, it is like our life's mission to make sure that other people can gain access to this kind of knowledge and see what they can
Mm.
do with it, right?
Yeah. It's puzzle pieces
That's what
like
I say all the
that
time.
are kind of messy, and I see myself just helping people put those puzzle pieces in, so every time they see a certain puzzle piece, they're like, "Oh, I know it goes there.
But it's
Oh, I've
also
been there before,"
I,
right?
I do tell my clients I'm like a puzzle master.
Yes.
And I'll say to them, what we're doing is we're dumping all of them out. I
Yeah.
know how to work with that messy middle, which is actually very funny because my husband loves doing puzzles and I actually hate doing physical puzzles. And my other son will be like, I'll be like, you want to do a puzzle with dad and I? And he'll be like, no, it physically makes me angry. And I laugh because it also physically makes me angry. I don't like them, but I love the emotional mental puzzle.
Yeah.
But what I like doing with my clients is when we're putting the puzzle pieces together, it also becomes very clear where the missing pieces of the puzzle are.
Yes. Yes.
And then that's when we can say, okay, how do we explore this? How do we investigate this? Who do we
Yeah.
need to ask a question to?
Yes.
How do we get curious so we
Right.
can fill in that missing piece? You and I could go on for hours. This is very
I know,
clear.
crazy.
I know you have something that you have a membership, and I
Yes.
asked you before if there was something that you want to offer
Yes.
for clients at the end. What is it that you could offer to people who are listening that are like, oh my
Yes.
God, I need more of Trina. I'm very
Yeah.
connected and aligned to her work.
Well, thank you so much for letting me into your amazing space. And I love, flip your mindset because this is what I'm all about too. I don't want people to go through this alone. Any way that I can help bring people into a community and actually connecting people in a space where they feel seen, heard, and validated is what I want to gift to people. So for your listeners and your audience, I want them to, or I want to gift 2 months free membership to my Conscious Connections. Two
Amazing.
calls a month, led by me, where you're in a space where we connect deeply. We talk about the things that are the obstacles. It involves coaching. It involves the meditation. Really gets you deeper into sustaining that change and transformation that you're in a community that's just loving and supportive. So
How can they find that offer? What's the best way for them to try to gain access to that?
yeah, so it's on my website, trinaschmidt.com/podcast.
Okay, great. So
Yeah.
I will obviously have that in the show notes. It's Trina
Yes.
Schmidt dot com forward
Yes.
slash podcast.
Mhm.
That will be in the show notes when this releases. And this has just been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for accepting our offer to have you on the podcast. I knew it would be a powerful conversation, and I love how it organically just flowed exactly the where it needed to be today. So,
Oh,
guys, again, trinaschmidt.com. Obviously, she's amazing. She's out of the Florida area, but she works remotely, like many of us do. And if Trina's work kind of felt in alignment with you, absolutely reach out to her. As always, guys, we cannot heal what we do not understand. And it is really my hope that you gain some deeper understanding today. Thank you for listening.